Hey everyone, welcome to Patriot Soapbox. My commentary on this today is reported by the Wall Street Journal. First up, I learned that apparently in the internet world, you can't make a joke about a fictional character without getting criticized like it's just a fictional character. Because what I did, since in the movie Captain America: Civil War, it's revealed that Iron Man's parents died on December 16th, 1991. I jokingly posted about it today because it's December 16th, and it's like I was trying to make fun of all those like sympathy posts, like can this brave hero or whatever get a like and a share. So I did that, and most people were like, "It's a fictional character, it's not real." I'm like, it was just a joke, and I posted it in a Marvel memes Facebook group, and I'm like, you people are stupid, but whatever. But as far as the news goes, though, so first up, there's a lot of news on Trump's new trade deal and the impeachment because both are apparently coming up for a vote soon in the House. Which it's weird that they're agreeing to pass this thing, like USMCA, while they're trying to get rid of Trump. You'd think they'd try to wait it out and not have to pass it. I just wait until he's gone, which he's not going to be gone. But you think they'd try that, but no, apparently not. Though Trump's folks say that his group of people, they say that USMCA is it's going to be it's sort of going to be their template for future trade deals. So it's like with like potentially with China, Japan, EU, and then Trump's also trying to win over Boris Johnson right now because once the UK exits the European Union, hopefully on target on January 31st, but who knows how that'll turn out. But once they do exit, then Trump hopes to strike a trade deal with them. But the USMCA is indeed supposed to be like sort of a template. And then as far as the impeachment goes, there are, let's see, there's 31 there's like 31 House Democrats that Trump won in 2016. So those are the Democrats who helped flip the House blue. However, two of them have said that they're not going to vote to impeach Trump. One of whom was actually is defecting to the Republican Party now. So good on them because those districts probably aren't going to support impeachment if they voted for Trump in 2016, and so it's going to probably damage their career because remember, all 435 members of the House of Representatives are up for vote every 2 years. So it's not going to reflect well on them. But they're stupid apparently. If seriously, I think they got to be out of their minds if they're doing this because it's going to politically backfire. First of all, it'll die in the Senate, and second, it just won't like even if it does pass the House, a lot of and the Senate, it'll still have pretty negative repercussions. So yeah. In the unlikely event that Trump were actually be removed by the Senate, there'd be an enormous public backlash. So yeah. And then the U.S. kicked out 2 embassy officials from China who were trying to break into a military base. That's not So apparently they've taken the whole stealing other countries' tech thing to a whole nother level by just saying screw it, let's actually go walk into a military base, and they got thrown out. So yeah. And then next up, so Bernie Sanders, just like in 2016, his coalition of people is mainly the college crowd, the young people. And he's got and his support among, he has 52% support with Democrat voters under the age of 35, which is pretty impressive that he's got just over half of them. But it's about 2% or so for those over 65. Which means he's capturing a lot of young people, but the older people who can see through his bullshit are not not voting for this guy. So now they're mainly targeting in students and whatnot they're trying to get them to convince their parents to be Sanders fans. Basically, either pitches, hey kids, you gotta convince your parents to build a better future for you by voting for a socialist dictatorship. They're saying the young people are voting for Sanders because they're going to be around longer than their parents, and so they're going to have to deal with the consequences of their parents' mistakes. So parents should, right their wrongs and vote for Sanders. I I feel like something's off on that pitch. Like they're basically saying that people's parents and grandparents screwed them over. I mean, yeah, that's happened for some people, but really, it's like that's like assuming like the entire like two or three generations past have screwed over the future ones. I mean, sure they have in some ways. I mean, like the debt, like the crippling deficit and whatnot. But that's just like the politicians. Like politicians from prior generations who have screwed over the younger voters, not necessarily the people who voted for them. I mean, sure they voted for people who advocate for those policies, but it just seems kind of unfair, you know. And they're still gonna maybe vote for you have to convince your parents to make a wise choice. I feel like the only I feel like you'd be casting a doubt their choice about if you're convincing them to be dumb enough to vote for Bernie Sanders, I don't think their parents are going to consider making a choice to help your future. I think they're going to reconsider the choice of making you raising you looking back and thinking, where did we go wrong that our kid is now a Sanders fan? So yeah, I think that he's not going to work because older people we lived through the Cold War. We saw what happened to socialism in Russia and in Eastern Europe. It ain't gonna work here. It might be able to carry on longer than Russia because the U.S. starts off on a better footing, but it'll pretty quickly turn to the Soviet Union, pretty quickly. And this is interesting. So a couple of years ago, right after Brexit was first announced, and it was voted for, they're officially gonna try to get out of the EU. There were a few other countries who sort of jumped on the Brexit bandwagon, mulling over. I know the major one is Germany was mulling over getting out of the EU. Some are thinking about just getting rid of the euro, which only half the countries in the EU currently use, and some are thinking of just completely breaking away. But after they saw the 3.5 year disaster that Brexit has been for Great Britain, most of them are like, you know what? Well, we can live with the EU. But yeah, for Britain at this point, it's no turning back because they already voted for it and whatnot. So 3.5 years for nothing. But it is, it is just definitely a disincentive for all those other voters and politicians on the continent when it comes to breaking away. Even now, the EU skeptic parties are. It says they've mostly given up on calling for their own version of Brexit. So how that plays out remains to be seen. It remains to be seen if UK will actually leave or if the date will just keep getting delayed and delayed and delayed and delayed and delayed and delayed. This is sad because of the waste of our tax dollars. The UN climate talks failed to reach. They failed to reach any sort of accord or decision, which is highly disappointing given that the UN is 20% funded by American tax dollars. So that's your money, my money, being wasted on the UN. I think we should kick the UN out and either defund the UN and kick them out, or we can just seize it with military force and be like, all right, you're all hostages now of the United States Army. You're not allowed to leave until we get to actually getting things done in here. We need to find that's a little drastic, but. Come on, if the UN wants to have any purpose, it might need sort of a radical overhaul when it comes to policies and procedures and whatnot, so they can actually get stuff done. How about making currently there are 5 what's known as permanent members: the United States, Britain, France, Russia. Well, it was the Soviet Union because that's what it was when it was founded, but Russia replaced them, and then China, which replaced Taiwan because there's still a dispute between China and Taiwan over who rules both of them. And so for a while, the UN recognized Taiwan as the rightful one, but then they decided, you know what, it's more realistically China. They have the mainland. It's pretty obvious. So they kicked out. So that's why Taiwan's not in the EU or not in the UN. It got kicked out in favor of China. So they have all veto power. Maybe only the US should have veto power because China and Russia have historically been a thorn in the US side when it comes to passing UN resolutions, because everyone will be in favor of it, or most countries, and they'll be like, you know what, nah, and just kill the entire thing. So I think they should just make the US the sole veto power for starters. The next up, self-driving cars were like earlier this year, like promised. There's talks of self-driving taxis and in San Francisco, self-driving cars for Uber and Lyft, blah, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. Ford and Ford and Volkswagen are working together to make self-driving cars, and even Tesla's now in it because of course they're run by Elon Musk. Of course he's gonna do this, but it doesn't seem to be coming as soon as we thought because they still have some issues. Now, people like speaking of San Francisco, like they banned facial recognition cameras, which are really just more accurate security cameras. And I'm like, when people rail against that, I'm like, so do you want to tear down existing cameras? Are you saying that we should deliberately have crappy technology? What? I really don't get it. But I think like facial recognition has it gets derided for like being because it can be used how China uses it to, stop to more accurately monitor its citizens and impose their will and social credit system. But it could also be used to more accurately identify anything. Like, for example, you could put it on you can have them watch you could have an entirely automated factory, and if the camera monitoring, you have like a few like workmen there to fix any mistakes or whatever, the facial recognition cameras can't. So you could set them up on an assembly line and have them look for errors in product, and if they spotted one, it could trigger the whole system to shut down so the issue could be fixed. Or it could just take, or maybe not even humans fix it, maybe robots could fix it. And for self-driving cars, a facial recognition camera could be trained to identify pedestrians, animals, all sorts of objects, and so know when to stop and go, and can know changes in the speed limit by looking at the speed limit signs. Well, now even the GPS knows that without the cameras because GPS linked up to like a database of maps and where speed limits are. So maybe not that one, but still, locating obstacles would be a great application for facial recognition tech. But apparently they're sticking with radar and lasers to judge distance. Like, I mean, we've had self-driving cars like lasers and radar since 2005 when Stanford won a $2 million prize from DARPA due to making this thing that drove 132 miles. But that was like through the desert, not on roads. So mainly the problems with self-driving cars, they can't distinguish between different kinds of obstacles. Again, why we need more advanced cameras, and they're ridiculously expensive. Like Waymo, subsidiary of Alphabet, and Google and YouTube are also subsidiaries of that company. Waymo is they're testing Chrysler Pacifica hybrid minivans. That's the car they're using. The gear that they add on to it, to make a self-driving car, that alone costs more than a regular Chrysler Pacifica, which is nuts. The op-ed estimates it's probably $200,000 a piece for one of these cars once they're launched. They're too expensive and too inaccurate. But give it time. Everything's been super expensive at first. I mean, cars were super expensive. iPhones, super expensive. Cell phones in general, super expensive. And they eventually got cheaper thanks to the free market. So, I mean, price-wise, we'll get there with self-driving cars. But as far we need better cameras and sensing systems. Also, I think autonomous cars are sort of a danger because imagine I bet hackers are gonna be drooling over themselves once the first self-driving car hits the road. Because imagine the terrorist potential. You could shut down an entire city by having cars drive off a bridge, or into buildings, or into each other. That'd be chaos and totally possible. Because no matter how hard their code makers and whatnot try, everything can be hacked. Everything. Then finally, the study here there's an op-ed about how minimum wage is hurting small business, and so currently the federal minimum wage is $7.25 an hour, but over half the states have their own minimum wage. Now they can't make minimum wage lower than $7.25 or terminate it, but they can make a higher one. Here in Massachusetts, it's $12 an hour, and it's supposed to gradually climb. I think soon here it's gonna hit $13 an hour. It's gonna cap out at $15 an hour. But it's supposed to, the way they're doing it like that, the reason why they're doing it like that is supposed to keep up with inflation. ignoring the fact that it causes price inflation because the wage price spiral, which is an economic term for like how like when people want higher wages, companies have to raise their prices to pay for those wages. But when people see higher prices, they want higher wages to pay for those higher prices. So prices then go up, wages go up, prices go up. It's a wage price spiral. So it doesn't work. So it does cause inflation in a way. And well, from uh, from about 1989 to 2013, so this study was conducted, and so like there's a lot of like so whenever the minimum wage goes up, like businesses stop taking out like the amount of loans taken out, for example, they're starting businesses that falls because people are like, we don't want to have to pay them that much. Come on, we're a new business. Then the amount like the default rate, like which is basically when companies say, we give up on loans, we can't pay them, we're bankrupt. Like that's all. That's also going that. Like there's much more of those, and employment dives because people can't pay to hire everyone. So that alone is perhaps a disincentive. But listen to this: for every like dollar increase in the minimum wage in the states, the authors of the study estimate that loan amounts for for business loans, which average about $100,000, they drop like 9% more in the affected states, and the risk of default was 12% higher. So, and then business exits rose 5%. So businesses were like, we're moving to a state where we can pay less. So all that is a disincentive to raise the minimum wage to $15 an hour nationally because it'll kill. It's estimated it'll probably kill about 1 to 3 million jobs, which could overturn a lot of the good work already done by bringing jobs back by the Trump administration. And to close off, here's my big question for all the people who support, like, say that, like you hear politicians say all the time, or just liberals in general, that a minimum wage is necessary because otherwise employers would charge starvation wages, or quote unquote starvation wages, like, which is pretty much which there's no like dollar amount for starvation wages. It's just whatever they say is starvation wages. But let's assume it was true that without the minimum wage, companies would pay unfair salaries. All right, they would pay like $1 an hour or something that you could not possibly sustain, could not possibly live on that. First of all, remember I said about like if wages go up, prices go up. So maybe if wages went down, prices could be forced down, and so eventually fix itself. So that's my first objection. My second objection to that idea is that currently it's about 3% or so of all workers in the U.S. make minimum wage. Just 3%, not 20, not 50, not 99, just 3%. And if you exclude part-time workers, then that number drops to only 1%. So if 1% of the entire workforce is making minimum wage, or rather the entire full-time workforce is making minimum wage, then that means that 99% make over it. So if we got rid of the minimum wage, then I think it would be logical to assume that, people would still get high-paying jobs. That's all I got for this episode of Picture Your Soapbox. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and for more great daily content. And next time someone says that that the minimum wage, that if there's no minimum wage, companies charge unfair wages, to ask them, then why do only 1% of full-time workers currently make minimum wage?